There's certain phrases that don't sound dangerous at all. They sound calm, reasonable, even mature. But if you pay close attention, you'll realize something uncomfortable. Some of the most effective manipulation doesn't come through aggression. It comes through words that feel safe, words that lower your guard, while slowly taking control of your time, your attention, and your self-respect. And that's why most men don't even realize it's happening. They don't feel manipulated. They feel involved. They feel connected. They feel like they're trying to make things work. But behind the surface, the dynamic is already shifting. Because the moment clarity disappears, control quietly takes its place. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." At first, this sounds like a statement about discipline, but in reality, it's a warning. Because if you don't understand what influences your decisions, your emotions will be used against you. And the most dangerous part is this: you won't lose everything at once. You'll lose it slowly. You'll invest more time, more energy, more attention, while receiving less and less in return, until one day you realize you were never in control of the situation. In this video, we're going to break down 5 phrases women use to control men. Not loud manipulation, not obvious games, but subtle psychological patterns that most men completely miss. And once you see them clearly, you'll start noticing something different. It's not just what she says, it's what you allow. So let's begin with the first phrase, one that sounds the most harmless, but quietly changes everything. Phrase number 1. I love you, but let's just be friends. At first, this sounds harmless, soft, respectful, even honest. It sounds like she's trying to protect your feelings. I still care about you, I just don't want to lose you. And that's exactly why it works. Because most men hear the word love and they relax. They think, okay, she still has feelings. Maybe this can still turn into something. But look more carefully at what's actually being offered. Love without commitment, connection without direction, access without responsibility. This is not a relationship. It's a position where you give, but you're never truly chosen. And once you accept that position, the dynamic is already set. You become the person she calls when she feels lonely, when she needs advice, when another man disappoints her. You become emotional support without emotional priority. And here's the part most men don't want to admit. The moment you accept this, you're not being kept, you're choosing to stay. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The worth of a man is measured by what he is able to refuse." And this is where that idea becomes real. Because refusing isn't about anger. It's not about ego. It's about clarity. A man who understands his value does not negotiate for a role that diminishes it. But most men do the opposite. They try to explain. They try to convince. They try to prove that they're different. And every extra word pushes them deeper into a position they should never have accepted. Because once someone sees that you're willing to stay without being chosen, they stop seeing you as an option and start seeing you as something always available. And availability without boundaries does not create respect. It creates convenience. So the real question here is not, why is she saying this? The real question is, why are you accepting it? Because once you understand that, the entire dynamic changes. And if you don't, you'll fall into the next trap, one that keeps men stuck longer than anything else. Phrase number 2. Give me time to think about it. At first, this sounds reasonable, mature, measured, even respectful. It feels like she's taking the situation seriously, and most men want to respond the right way. So they wait, they give space, they try to be understanding. They convince themselves that patience is strength. But there's something most men don't see. Time is not neutral. Time is leverage. Because when a woman truly wants a man, she doesn't need time to decide if she wants him. She may need time to organize her life, to adjust her schedule, to handle her situation, but not to decide. That decision happens quickly. So when you hear, "Give me time to think about it," what you're often hearing is something else. "I'm not sure you're the best option, but I don't want to lose your attention yet." And this is where men get trapped, because instead of stepping back, they lean in. They check their phone more often. They reply faster. They try to stay present in her mind. They start behaving like a man waiting for results. And the moment you enter that mindset, you lose your position. Because now, you're no longer a man with direction. You're a man waiting to be chosen. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once wrote, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." And that's exactly what happens here. When you make one person the center of your focus, you slowly lose yourself. Your time, your energy, your presence, all become dependent on a decision that is no longer in your control. And here's the deeper problem. The longer you wait, the more you invest. And the more you invest, the harder it becomes to walk away. That's how a temporary situation turns into a permanent position. But men who understand this dynamic move differently. They don't argue. They don't chase clarity. They simply continue living their life as if no decision is pending. Because a man with direction does not pause his life for someone else's uncertainty. And something interesting happens when you do that. If she was serious, she comes back with clarity. If she wasn't, she disappears. Either way, you get your answer without chasing it. Because in situations like this, the answer is never in what she says, it's in what she does next. And if you don't understand that, you'll fall into the next pattern, where men slowly lose respect without even realizing it. Phrase number 3, "I'm busy." At first, this sounds completely normal. Everyone is busy. Work, family, responsibilities, life happens. And that's exactly why this phrase is so effective, because it gives a perfect cover for something much deeper. The problem is not the phrase itself. The problem is what most men do after hearing it. Because the moment a man becomes emotionally invested, he stops listening objectively. He starts interpreting. She's just stressed. She has a lot going on. Maybe I should try a different time. And slowly, without realizing it, he begins to adjust himself. He changes his schedule. He becomes more flexible. He tries to fit into her availability. And that's where the shift happens. Because the more you adjust, the less you are respected. Not because she dislikes you, but because you're showing something subtle, that your time is less important than hers. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you seek tranquility, do less." And in this context, it means something very specific. Stop doing more to earn what should be freely given. Because attention is not something you negotiate for. It's something that is either there or it isn't. And here's the truth most men avoid. People don't make time for what they like. They make time for what they prioritize. So the real question is not, is she busy? The real question is she making it easy for me to be part of her life? Because when a woman truly wants you, you will feel it, not through words, but through effort. There will always be an opening, a suggestion, an alternative, something that keeps the connection alive. But when that effort is missing, everything becomes vague. Maybe later. We'll see. I'll let you know. And that vagueness is the answer. Men who understand this don't argue. They don't try to fix the situation. They simply step back and observe. Because respect doesn't come from chasing attention. It comes from being willing to walk away from inconsistency. And if you fail this moment, you'll move into the next one, where the pressure becomes direct and the control becomes obvious. Phrase number 4. If you love me, do this. This is where manipulation stops being subtle and becomes direct. At first, it sounds emotional, even intimate. It feels like she's asking for proof. Proof that you care. Proof that you're serious. Proof that you're different. And that's why most men don't question it. They respond. But look more carefully at what's happening. This is not a request, it's a condition. Because the moment love is tied to compliance, it stops being love. It becomes leverage. And the tool being used here is guilt. Because guilt is powerful. It makes people override logic. It makes them ignore boundaries. It makes them act against their own interest just to avoid feeling like they failed someone. And that's exactly how control is established. A man who feels guilty is easy to direct. He spends money he shouldn't spend. He accepts behavior he shouldn't tolerate. He apologizes when he's not wrong. Not because he's weak, but because he's trying to prove something. And that's the trap. Because the goal is not for you to prove love once. The goal is to create a pattern where every time you hesitate, your love is questioned. Every time you set a boundary, your love is questioned. Every time you say no, your love is questioned. And over time, you stop making decisions based on clarity. You start making them based on pressure. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." And in this situation, that freedom is internal. Because the moment your actions are driven by guilt, you are no longer in control of yourself. And once you lose that, you lose everything that comes with it. Your standards, your direction, your identity. Men who understand this don't react emotionally. They don't argue, they don't accuse. They simply remove the pressure from the equation. They treat requests like adults treat requests. Clearly, calmly, without guilt. Because real respect does not grow in an environment of pressure. It grows where boundaries are clear. And if you fail this test, you'll face the final one. The one that confuses men the most because it doesn't feel like control at all. Phrase number 5. I need some space. This is the most dangerous one. Not because it sounds aggressive, because it sounds calm, mature, even healthy. And that's exactly why it destroys so many men. Because unlike other situations, this one creates silence. And silence is where the mind starts to work against you. You start thinking, what did I do wrong? Is she losing interest? Should I fix this? And without realizing it, you begin chasing something that asks to move away from you. That's the trap. Because space is not always what it seems. Sometimes it is real, sometimes it's needed, but many times it's something else entirely. It's distance without losing access. It's freedom without consequences. I want to step away, but I don't want to lose your attention. And the men who get caught here are the ones who cannot tolerate uncertainty. So they fill the silence with long messages, with explanations, with apologies, with attempts to fix something that was never clearly defined. And every time you do that, you send a message, I cannot function without you. And once that message is felt, respect begins to drop. not because she's cruel, but because dependency is not attractive. It's convenient. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." And this is where that idea becomes real, because you cannot control what someone else chooses to do, but you can control how you respond to it. And the mature response to space is not panic, it's discipline. You don't chase someone who asks to step away from you. You allow the distance to reveal the truth, because space always reveals something. If she values you, she will feel your absence. If she doesn't, she will stay gone. Or worse, she will return casually, expecting the same access as before. And that's when everything becomes clear. Because a woman who truly respects you does not need space repeatedly. And if she constantly does, then the problem is not the situation, it's the dynamic. And in that moment, you have a decision to make. Not about her, but about yourself. Because this is where most men either keep their dignity or slowly give it away.
Final truth. You were never being controlled. You were allowing it. These 5 phrases. I love you, but let's just be friends. Give me time to think. I'm busy. If you love me, do this. I need space. On the surface, they don't look dangerous. They sound normal. They sound reasonable. Sometimes they even sound caring. But when you understand the pattern behind them, you start to see something else. They're not just words. They're situations where clarity is removed and control quietly takes its place. And this is the part most men don't want to accept. A woman can only control you if you continue to give her access after she removes clarity. That's it. Not because she's smarter, not because she's manipulative, but because you stayed when you should have stepped back. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And that's exactly what happens here. Men don't lose themselves in reality. They lose themselves in what they hope is happening, in what they think it could become, in what they don't want to lose. And while they're holding on to that, they slowly give away something far more important: their standards, their boundaries, their self-respect. Because in the end, this was never about her words. It was about your response. Weak men react. They chase. They explain. They wait. Strong men observe. They stay calm. They keep their direction. And when necessary, they walk away. Because respect is not something you ask for. It's something you protect. And once you understand that, you stop being controlled by situations like these. Thank you for watching Stoic Wisdom today. And now, I want you to think carefully. Which of these 5 phrases have you experienced the most? And more importantly, how did you respond? Drop it in the comments. Because once you start seeing these patterns clearly, you stop playing the game blindly. And if you want to understand more about psychology, attraction, and real self-mastery, subscribe to us. Because the difference between a man who gets played and a man who stays in control is not luck, it's awareness. Until next time, stay calm, stay grounded, stay stoic.